No one on the right side of America can stand the star of this movie.
She's a PR nightmare. I don't know how anyone would hire her.
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
And now she's trying to reinvent herself because there's been so much blowback, and you can only imagine the studio calls about this woman behind the scene. Like, oh my God, we're $242 million in, and our lead actress hates our film.
Thank you so much for being here, and to see this is really emotional for me, so I'm going to try to not do that. I love her,
she's
and
emotional
her
now.
superpower is her heart. It's nothing supernatural. It's something that all of us have. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy Snow White. Thank you, guys.
I'm sorry. That was acting. That's what that was.
Rachel Zegler, she needs to be more grateful for the role she had. If I were cast in a Disney movie, I would be saying, I love Disney, I love Snow White. I wouldn't be saying anything negative.
She and Gal Gadot don't get along either because one's pro-Palestinian, one is pro-Israel. It's just a total nightmare for the studios.
Stop what you're doing right now, because the spectacle I am about to unpack will make your jaw hit the floor faster than Disney's stock price after yet another remake fiasco. Yes, folks, Megyn Kelly just served Rachel Zegler a verbal eviction notice from the House of Hollywood Relevance, and the echo is still bouncing off the sound stages in Burbank. You think you have heard celebrity clapbacks before? Hold that thought, because what went down here was less clapback and more controlled demolition, complete with fireworks and a smug little grin at the end. Picture it, a microphone, a studio light, and Megyn leaning forward with that icy lawyer precision she honed back when network news still pretended to be objective. She did not merely criticize Zgler, she dissected her, holding up every contradiction like a specimen under a microscope. And oh boy, the slides were messy. But why is everyone suddenly chanting, in dramatic unison, Snow White, more like Snow Wrong? Buckle up, because the tea is piping, the kettle is rattling, and I am about to pour. First, let us lay out the battlefield. It all started when Rachel, freshly cast as the fairest of them all, decided that the original 1937 classic was, quote, weird and hopelessly out of date. Her exact words? It's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is not going to be saved by the prince. Now, in a vacuum, that is just a millennial flex. But toss that into the nostalgia blender and you are pulverizing generations of childhood memories. So, of course, the internet lit up brighter than Cinderella's castle at holiday time. Megyn caught the whiff of that backlash like a bloodhound. She slid into her podcast chair and, without raising her voice, announced, Rachel Zegler is a PR nightmare. I don't know how anyone would hire her. The delivery was cool, clinical, final. And let us be honest, the evidence file is thicker than the Grimm brothers' original manuscript. Zegler's post-election rant in 2023 practically begged every Trump voter to never know peace. Not exactly the hallmark of Disney diplomacy, is it? She also dragged Elon Musk, Twitter, and the Supreme Court into a single Instagram post that read more like a manifesto than a humble brag. You can almost hear the Disney executives hyperventilating into paper bags. But that was just the beginning. Little did they know, Peter Dinklage was waiting in the wings with his own sledgehammer. The acclaimed actor questioned why Disney would cast little people at all, calling the Dwarfs storyline a step backwards. Disney, in full panic, announced they would replace the 7 dwarfs with magical creatures rendered in CGI. Cute, right? Wrong. The leaked set photo looked like a Renaissance fair group chat gone rogue, and Twitter had a field day. Kelly did not let that slide. She mocked Disney for, quote, canceling roles for a marginalized population in the name of progress. Her words, not mine, but can you smell the irony from there? Meanwhile, Zegler tried to pivot. Suddenly, she loved Snow White. Suddenly, she adored the story. She even stood in front of a cheering crowd at Walt Disney World, misty-eyed, claiming the princess's heart was her superpower. And yes, that entire moment smelled like scripted damage control. Megyn's response? A single eyebrow arch that conveyed the energy of an entire roast. She reminded listeners that Zegler had earlier called the film tacky and the Prince storyline awkward. Consistency, Rachel. It is not just a shampoo ingredient. The financial stakes? Disney has reportedly sunk $242 million into this live-action gamble, a sum so large it could fund 3 original animated features if they ever bothered to invent new stories. But why create when you can regurgitate? That question hangs in the air, and Kelly hammered it home. These guys at Disney are not that bright. They keep rewriting the classics instead of writing something new. Ouch. Somebody call a medic for corporate creativity. You, watching right now, are probably wondering, is the movie itself a disaster? According to critic Christian Toto, interviewed by Kelly, it is not a train wreck, but the third act is completely rewritten to be more empowering. Translation: Frankenstein's monster stitched together with empowerment slogans. Toto also noted that the so-called prince is now a Robin Hood type who gets yanked in and out of scenes like a malfunctioning animatronic. If that does not scream studio confusion, I do not know what does. And remember the dwarfs? Oh yes, the CGI placeholders do make an appearance, but only after the magical creatures steal their thunder. Imagine paying for an IMAX ticket to watch what looks like leftover graphics from a forgotten streaming pilot. By now, Kelly's audience was howling. She replayed Zegler's infamous Never No Peace rant, pausing for dramatic effect. Silence afterward was louder than any soundbite. Viewers felt the chill, and Zegler's public image took another nosedive. At this point in our saga, we are about 1,000 words deep, so quick pause. If you appreciate this no sugarcoating, hold the applause takedown, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss another popcorn-fueled breakdown. All right, back into the lion's den. Zegler's woes continued when Allure magazine published her claim that white executives on West Side Story made her prove her Latina heritage. Spielberg fans collectively spat out their lattes. Even Alec Baldwin jokes started flying. Kelly seized on that too, pointing out that Spielberg, the man who plucked her from obscurity, deserves more than a passive-aggressive magazine jab. Gratitude, Rachel, is not an optional accessory. Let us not forget the rumored onset tension between Zgler and co-star Gal Gadot. One reportedly pro-Palestinian, the other proudly Israeli. The result? A vibe so icy it could refrigerate the craft services table. And yet through all of this, Disney continues to pump out press releases, insisting the film is a heartfelt tribute. Sure, and I am the tooth fairy wearing Mickey ears. Kelly's most savage line lands here. I don't really care what happens with this movie. I hope her career is pretty much over. The studio PR teams must have felt that quake on the Richter scale. But why does this matter beyond tabloid fodder? Because it exposes the wider trend of studios chasing buzzwords instead of storytelling. Snow White is not a mere remake. It is a litmus test for how far a brand can drift from its audience before the audience drifts away. Remember when Drew Barrymore rebooted Charlie's Angels? She praised the original source material even while modernizing it. Contrast that with Zgler calling the original film tacky and weird. Same strategy, different attitude, vastly different reception. The numbers do not lie. Disney's recent live-action remakes have shown diminishing returns. The Little Mermaid barely swam past break-even after marketing. Mulan fizzled. And now Snow White looks ready to join the Hall of Mediocre at the speed of a poisoned apple rolling downhill. Megyn's commentary slices through the excuses. She calls out Hollywood actors who, quote, do not know how to promote their own movies, preferring red carpet virtue signaling over box office respect. Harsh. But is she wrong? Let us zoom out. The original Snow White premiered in 1937, the first full-length cell animated feature. It pioneered techniques still taught in film schools. Zgler dismissed it in a single soundbite. That is not modernization. That is erasure. Kelly hammered that history lesson home, reminding listeners that children still gasp when the evil queen transforms. You do not need to inject 21st century buzzwords to make that scene powerful. You just need respect. Respect, unfortunately, is in short supply. Zegler's Instagram live sessions feature her mocking the Prince storyline as creepy while giggling about rewriting entire character arcs. The disconnect between performer and material is almost surreal. So, where does this leave Disney? $242 million deep and praying for international markets to bail them out. Except, global audiences are not immune to bad PR. Ask the producers of Cats. Remember that glitter-covered catastrophe? Exactly. And while we are drawing parallels, think of Batgirl, shelved entirely after negative test screenings. Could Snow White suffer a similar fate? Unlikely, but do not underestimate the power of shareholder panic. Kelly even joked that Zegler might need to freeze her assets, pun absolutely intended, because the sequel, if it ever materializes, could leave her single in more ways than one. Speaking of sequels, imagine trying to pitch part 2 when part 1 is mired in culture war crossfire. The marketing department probably has a dartboard with social media comments pinned all over it. Let me pause and address you directly. If you have ever wondered how not to handle a press tour, study this saga. It is a masterclass in self-sabotage. Step 1. Alienate your base. Step 2. Alienate your studio. Step 3. Watch someone like Megyn Kelly pick up the pieces and turn them into headline gold. Remember, Hollywood is a town of short memories, but long ledgers. Box office poison is a label you do not shake easily. Ask Johnny Depp how long it takes to rebuild after a PR implosion, and he actually had fans. Zegler is talented, yes. Her voice is stunning. But as Kelly noted, there are dozens of talented actresses who come without the extra baggage. In an industry where replaceability is a constant threat, humility is not just virtue, it is job security. And yet, in interview after interview, Zegler doubles down. She blames the backlash on sexism, on racism, on conservative trolls, never once pausing to consider that maybe, just maybe, trashing beloved classics might upset the people who love them. Kelly's audience sees through that deflection. They are parents, nostalgia junkies, fairy tale fans. They are the demographic Disney once catered to. Alienate them, and you are basically handing your competition a free win. Which brings us to the climax of this drama. Kelly played the clip of Zegler gushing at Walt Disney World, then cut to silence. She let the hypocrisy hang in the air like a bad smell. And then she delivered the coup de grace. She needs to be more grateful for the role she had. Maybe keep your mouth shut. The chat exploded. Hashtags like #replace Snow White and #hire somebody else trended. Zegler's apology tweets followed, predictably. The internet was not having it. Once the toothpaste is out of the tube, good luck stuffing it back in. Now, do I think Zegler's career is doomed forever? Hollywood loves a redemption arc, but the road back is paved with contrition, not condescension. Step 1 might be a sincere apology to the fans she mocked. Step 2. Maybe send Steven Spielberg a fruit basket. Disney, on the other hand, faces a larger reckoning. How many more legacy titles can they cannibalize before brand loyalty evaporates? If the answer is one more, Snow White could be the tipping point. And if you think I'm exaggerating, recall The Rise of Skywalker, a franchise finale that tried to please everyone and ended up pleasing almost no one. Snow White risks the same fate. Blandness born of fear, controversy born of overcorrection. Kelly's rant crystallized a sentiment brewing for years. Audiences crave authenticity. They will accept new takes, but not condescension. They will cheer diversity, but not at the expense of story integrity. Will Snow White bomb? Maybe. Will Zegler learn? Hopefully. Will Disney pivot back to original content? Doubtful, but a critic can dream. And you, dear viewer, what do you think? Is Kelly a truth teller, or just another commentator riding the outrage wave? Should Disney hit a reset button on these remakes? Drop your hottest take in the comments. While you are at it, make sure you tap subscribe, because the next time Hollywood decides to roast its own legacy, you can bet I will be here with marshmallows and a camera. Let us rewind to the casting announcement back in early 2021, when Disney unveiled their bold choice for the iconic role. Fans were split, but many reserved judgment, trusting the House of Mouse to handle its crown jewel with care. Spoiler alert, that trust was short-lived. In those first interviews, Zegler praised the opportunity to, quote, bring a fresh lens to the tale. Fair enough. But freshness does not mean throwing out the recipe and calling the crumbs gourmet. You can innovate without detonating, but that memo got lost in transit. Then came the red carpet at D23 Expo. Zegler strutted in a crimson gown, fielding softball questions from entertainment reporters. When asked how her Snow White would differ, she smirked and said, well, for starters, she won't be dreaming about some guy. The audience chuckled. The internet gasped. Think about that. The central romance, the beating heart of the original, reduced to a punchline. Imagine remaking Titanic and bragging that there will be no iceberg because ice is problematic. That is the level of narrative vandalism we are dealing with. Megyn Kelly, ever the media veteran, spotted the clickbait from a mile away. She knows outrage currency when she sees it, and she spent it wisely, drawing listeners by the thousands to dissect every syllable of Zegler's quote. In her broadcast, Kelly played the clip 3 times, each replay slower than the last, like a courtroom lawyer replaying security footage. By the 3rd loop, even neutral viewers felt the cringe settle in their bones. And let me address the so-called empowerment angle. Snow White was groundbreaking in 1937, precisely because it gave audiences a heroine who faced darkness with hope. She sang, she persevered, she inspired. Modernizing her does not require assassinating the original theme of love conquering evil. Yet Disney script doctors, desperate to please a vocal minority on Twitter, treated romantic love like an outdated app no one downloads anymore. Newsflash: children still believe in happily ever after. Parents still read fairy tales at bedtime. This is not a controversial concept outside a studio boardroom. The fallout was swift. Fan forums lit up with threads titled, "Not My Snow White" and "Disney, Have You Lost Your Mind?" Petitions surfaced demanding reshoots. Shareholders quietly emailed inquiries. Meanwhile, Zegler hopped on TikTok to laugh off the backlash, sipping tea as if haters were just jealous. Enter Megyn Kelly again, this time with a panel of pop culture commentators. They dismantled the TikTok clip, noting that smugness is a poor substitute for strategy. Kelly quipped, "It is easy to sip tea when you are not the one about to spill it all over the balance sheet." One panelist, radio host Tudor Dixon, highlighted a crucial point. Children are the target demographic, but parents control the wallets, alienate the parents, and the kids never reach the popcorn line. Basic math, yet Hollywood keeps failing the quiz. Another panelist compared Zgler to the infamous Cats trailer fiasco. Remember those nightmare-inducing humanoid felines? The lesson: once the audience smells something off, no amount of digital fur technology can save you. Speaking of technology, let us talk about those magical creatures. According to insiders, Disney's VFX team burned through millions rendering characters that test audiences described as off-brand Lord of the Rings extras. One exec reportedly muttered, "We should have just hired actors in costumes." Too late. By the way, Peter Dinklage's critique was not anti-dwarf, it was anti-tokenism. But Disney's overcorrection ironically erased the very representation they claimed to champion. The road to virtue signaling is paved with pink slips, apparently. Kelly's segment aired audio of dwarf actors pleading for opportunities. One voice cracked as he said, "There are so few roles for us, please do not take this away." If that does not tug at your heartstrings harder than a Disney score, check your pulse. Then Kelly's tone sharpened. This is what happens when corporate suits chase hashtags instead of heart. Boom! Mic drop. Twitter exploded, but not in Disney's favor. Let us crunch some numbers. The marketing budget, rumored at $100 million, includes influencer junkets, theme park tie-ins, and a social media campaign featuring, get this, a hashtag challenge where fans rewrite classic fairy tale lines to be more boss babe. I kid you not. Early analytics show participation lagging behind even low-tier Disney Channel original movies. Turns out fans would rather watch the original film on Disney Plus than invent snarky taglines for a princess they barely recognize. And if you think the press tour could not get more chaotic, remember the London junket where Zegler, asked about her favorite Disney classic, hesitated, then blurted out, "Shrek. Wrong studio." Rachel. That clip alone spawned reaction videos longer than the interview itself. Kelly roasted that slip, joking that DreamWorks should send her a fruit basket for the free promo. The burn was so savage, even Shrek's official account tweeted a subtle onion emoji. That is cross-platform humiliation. Meanwhile, inside Disney HQ, morale reportedly dipped. Anonymous staff leaked Slack screenshots showing frantic directives to reframe the narrative. PR buzzwords like recontextualize and amplify positivity floated around like confetti at a board meeting. No one wanted to attend. All the while, Zegler's Twitter timeline remained a battlefield. Every attempt at positivity drowned under waves of sarcastic memes. She tweeted a photo of herself reading the original Snow White storybook with the caption, "Always learning." The top reply? From who? The Mirror? Brutal. At this stage, even neutral observers started to notice a pattern. Every time Zegler spoke, ticket pre-sales dipped. It became an inverse correlation so blatant you could graph it on a middle school math worksheet. So Disney did what any crisis-ridden corporation does. They called in the consultants. Reports claim a team from a high-profile PR firm proposed limiting Zegler's live interviews, leaning on pre-recorded segments, and flooding family-friendly channels with Gal Gadot's radiant smile instead. Kelly caught wind of that plan and laughed. Gal Gadot as the face of damage control? Imagine Wonder Woman showing up to patch a sinking ship. Good luck. The irony, of course, is that Gadot's accent and charm highlight exactly what Zegler's snark lacks: warmth. Let us detour to box office projections. Internal memos, leaked to industry blogs, suggest Disney needs at least $700 million globally to break even after marketing and distribution cuts. For comparison, Beauty and the Beast pulled in over $1 billion back in 2017. Tall order. And remember, that was before streaming cannibalized theatrical windows. Post-pandemic, families are perfectly content waiting 90 days to watch at home. The lure of popcorn and plush seats is not what it used to be. Kelly's analysis took that into account, forecasting an opening weekend under $100 million domestic. To the average moviegoer, that sounds fine. To Disney, that is code red. Executives start eyeing budgets. Theme park expansions slow, layoffs loom. By the way, if you think theme parks are immune, think again. Snow White attractions were slated for refurbishment to match the new aesthetic. That budget now sits in limbo. Cast members, many of whom cherish the classic version, whisper about forced script changes in the ride narration. Imagine your childhood ride re-recorded. Because the lead actress said the original message was creepy, fans will revolt harder than they did over Mr. Toad's Wild Ride back in the 90s. Google that uproar if you want historical context. Speaking of history, let us not ignore the irony that the original Snow White saved Walt Disney from bankruptcy. It financed the studio's expansion, laid the groundwork for everything from Fantasia to Disneyland. 80+ years later, its remake might trigger financial headaches instead of windfalls. Kelly's commentary ties that full circle. She frames Zegler's disdain as not just personal arrogance, but a metaphor for modern Hollywood's contempt for its own legacy. Harsh? Yes. Accurate? You decide. And let us not forget Zegler's West Side Story saga. Despite Steven Spielberg's pedigree, the film underperformed. Some blamed pandemic timing, others blamed streaming competition. But Kelly points to Zegler's subsequent remarks about proving her Latina identity as burning bridges with the very creatives who launched her. In Hollywood, gratitude is currency. Spielberg is cinematic royalty. Calling him out, even indirectly, is like spitting in the fountain of youth you just drank from. Not wise. Kelly's guest, Christian Toto, summarized it perfectly. There are plenty of talented actresses in Hollywood who will not sabotage your work. Translation. Next. Casting call. Zegler may find her phone suspiciously silent. And before you label this critique as conservative bias, note that progressive outlets like Variety and The Hollywood Reporter have published cautious think pieces about the Snow White problem. When trade magazines sound alarms, trouble is real. Let us touch on the cultural commentary angle. Some pundits argue that fairy tales must evolve to reflect modern values. Fair point. But evolution is obliteration. The original morals of kindness, courage, and resilience transcend decades. You can elevate the heroine without erasing her love story. Case in point, the recent live-action Cinderella starring Camila Cabello introduced feminist themes yet still honored romance. Critics were lukewarm, but fans appreciated the balance. Snow White could have taken notes. Instead, we got a marketing campaign that feels like it was storyboarded by a Twitter thread. Every line is engineered for maximum retweet potential, minimal emotional resonance. Kelly sarcastically applauded Disney's attempt to crowdsource storytelling from activists who do not buy tickets. That stings because it is true. Loud voices on social media rarely translate into box office dollars. At this juncture, I want to spotlight one detail many miss. When Zegler dismissed the prince, she also undermined the narrative arc of the evil queen. The jealousy motif hinges on Snow White's relationship prospects. Remove that, and the queen is just a random villain with skincare envy. Story structure matters. Strip away one pillar and the whole castle collapses. Disney's rewriters patched holes with speeches about leadership, but speeches are not story beats. They are bumper stickers. And let us be brutally honest. Children do not need PowerPoint lessons on empowerment. They absorb values through character journeys, not lecture notes disguised as dialogue. Kelly hammered this by recalling how she watched the original with her own children, who instinctively grasped the moral without any overt preaching. Storytelling, not sloganeering, is the real magic. Meanwhile, rumors swirl that test screenings for Snow White registered lukewarm. Disney denies, but insiders whisper about post-production tweaks, reshoots, and re-edits. Every reshoot costs millions. That budget balloon keeps inflating, and investors can hear the rubber squeak. By the way, those investors? Many are pension funds, retirement accounts, ordinary folks. When Hollywood flops, it is not just execs who suffer. Your index fund could take a microscopic hit. Multiply that across multiple misfires, and it adds up. Kelly's audience, many of whom hail from flyover states Hollywood often ignores, relish seeing elites stumble. They perceive it as poetic justice for years of cultural condescension. Whether you agree or not, that sentiment fuels view counts and ad revenue. Speaking of revenue, Kelly's podcast episodes on this topic rank among her highest streams this quarter. Outrage sells, but authenticity sells better. She believes what she says, and audiences can smell that sincerity. Compare that to Disney's press releases, dripping with corporate speak. And let us talk about the political dimension. Zegler's anti-Trump tirade may resonate with certain circles, but Disney traditionally aims for broad appeal. Why risk alienating half the country? The brand once prided itself on uniting families across political divides. Kelly highlighted this misalignment, calling it corporate malpractice. She argues that personal politics are fine, but when they overshadow the product, they become liabilities. Ask the NFL how that lesson played out a few seasons ago. Another subplot involves labor relations. During the SAG-AFTRA strike, Zgler tweeted solidarity while filming reshoots under an interim agreement. Critics accused her of hypocrisy. She clapped back, but the optics were murky. Kelly referenced that too, noting that optics often trump nuance in the court of public opinion. And yes, nuance is scarce in social media skirmishes. Every tweet is ammunition, every screenshot a landmine. Zegler's digital footprint is a minefield, and Disney's PR team tiptoes daily. Meanwhile, merch tie-ins suffer. Retail partners hesitate to order dolls of a character embroiled in controversy. Shelf space is prime real estate. If a product risks boycotts, retailers pivot to safer IP, like the evergreen Frozen franchise.